You know, it's funny, if you'd told me a year ago that the biggest fight of my life would start with a fence, I probably would have laughed you right off my porch. But that's the thing about fences, right? Sometimes it's not about the boards and nails, but about the invisible lines people draw and what happens when you finally dare to cross them. My story. It's not just about property lines. It's about pride survival and learning how far folks will go to protect a fantasy, especially when someone like me moves in next door. See, I'd worked my butt off for 10 years, nights, weekends, holidays, climbing up from nothing, building a career as a systems architect. The kind of guy who solves impossible puzzles for a living. I bought myself a classic two-story colonial on a peaceful, tree-lined street, old wood floors, wrap-around porch, the works. I was proud, you know. This house wasn't just real estate. It was the proof I'd made it. My neighbors, well, they were polite but standoffish, nodded across the driveway, kept to themselves. And that was fine by me. I was chasing peace, not a block party. Except next door lived Brenda. Her house looked like mine, only hers felt more like a showroom. Spotless lawn, plastic-looking flowers and window boxes, everything just so. But you'd never see her outside doing the work. She just appeared ghost-like behind the glass. One day I get this text photo of my trash bins left out a little too long, and the words, community standards. No hello, no name, just cold as ice. I shot back an apology, on a call bringing them in now, and she replies instantly, all about property values, her sacred scripture. From then on, it was like she made it her mission to keep me in line, snapping pictures, silent glares, little passive-aggressive signals. But I'll tell you, it wasn't Brenda who brought the storm, not directly. That credit goes to her son Kevin. Picture a 20-something country club brat pulling up in a brand new BMW hair, just messy enough to look expensive polo shirt so white it could blind you in the sun. Brenda met him on the porch, wild-eyed, pointing at me, whispering and glancing. And suddenly Kevin's pacing my property line phone to his ear, shouting about an aggressive neighbor building an illegal barricade, playing up the drama. Next thing I know, 2 police cars pull up, sirens blaring, officers stepping out, hands resting just so on their belts. You could feel the energy shift. The construction crew froze. Neighbors peered through curtains. And there I was, caught in the middle of my own yard, every move under a microscope. Kevin spun his tale, claimed I was threatening him, building a compound, destroying the neighborhood vibe. "We're scared for our safety," he said with a trembling lip. And you know what? For a moment, I could feel myself shrinking, knowing full well what they were really scared of. But I wasn't about to back down. I showed the officers my permits, tried to keep my cool, but right then, Kevin did something wild. He rushed to a patch of grass and cradled the wreckage of a high-end drone. "You destroyed my livelihood." $20,000 wailing like he'd lost a child. I'd never seen the thing before in my life. Gus, my contractor, swore up and down that nobody heard or saw a drone. But the police just shook their heads, took our statements, handed out report numbers, and told us to work it out or take it to court. As soon as the cruisers disappeared, Kevin grinned at me all wolfish. "My mom's a paralegal, you'll hear from our lawyer." And sure enough, 2 days later, I get a demand letter for 20 grand plus threats of a lawsuit. That's the part that almost broke me. I sat there on my couch, letter shaking in my hands, thinking this is the cost for wanting a fence, for daring to exist here. But I don't rattle easy. I hired Ms. Davenport, the best civil litigator in town, and laid out everything: texts, threats, the drone. She nodded, steepled her fingers, and said, "It's a shakedown. They're betting you'll fold. Let's prove them wrong." She had me pull every security camera I had, grainy doorbell footage, cheap backyard cams. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She also told me to get affidavits from Gus and his crew, every man swearing they never saw a drone. But the key, she said, was to upgrade my cameras, blanket the place with high-def eyes, and wait. If they're willing to pull this, they'll try again. So I did. And just to tweak Kevin, I put up a sign on my gate, nitrogen monoxide teens allowed. Childish maybe, but it got under his skin. Within hours, Brenda was screaming at the HOA, and I got a nasty gram citing me for inflammatory signage. Ms. Davenport fired back with a legal nuke citing harassment and my rights, and the HOA backed down. But the real break came from a techie PI named Alex. He dug into Kevin's online world and found the golden ticket, a post weeks before my fence ever went up where Kevin bragged about crashing his drone and posted a picture, same drone, same wreckage. This wasn't just fraud, it was a recycled disaster wrapped in racism and legal threats. Alex also uncovered Brenda's dirty history, a decade of little insurance scams, lawsuits, all for small sums, all with meticulously faked evidence. Still, none of it was ironclad. The iPad was. Kevin had just listed it for sale online, probably desperate for quick cash. Alex, posing as a buyer, set up a sting with Detective Harding from the Economic Crimes Unit. The plan was simple. Buy the iPad, secure the evidence, get a warrant, and see what came spilling out. On the day of the handoff in the bustle of a mall food court, Alex sealed the deal and Harding's team took over. What they found? Well, let's just say Brenda kept records folders for every fake claim, every target, even instructions on how to stage damage and file police reports. She'd written it all out for Kevin, complete with notes about using certain trigger words when dealing with black neighbors. It was disgusting, hate, greed, and precision all mixed together. There were financial logs, out-of-court settlements, and even messages between Brenda and Kevin rehearsing their performance for my case. They'd raked in over $70,000 this way. My fence was just the latest mark. Detective Harding wasted no time. Warrants went out, and the next morning I watched from my window as police swarmed Brenda's house. She opened the door in a silk robe, clutching her pride, until the moment Harding said, "We have the iPad." Her face just crumbled. Kevin came downstairs trying to bluff it out until Harding told him about the video the form posts the notes on the iPad. That's when the shouting started, mother blaming son, son blaming mother, each tearing the other down as the police put them in cuffs and led them away. After that, things moved fast. The news got hold of the story, suburban fraud ring exposed, headlines screamed. Neighbors brought over cookies and casseroles, said they never would have guessed. Some even apologized for not speaking up sooner. But there were whispers, too, online trolls twisting it, blaming me, or just refusing to believe the evidence. I saw firsthand how deep those lines run the ones people draw inside themselves. Brenda was convicted on multiple felonies, insurance fraud, conspiracy, and thanks to her own words, hate crime enhancements. 5 years with a shot at parole. Kevin flipped on his mom for a deal, 2 years probation and community service. Their house was auctioned off to pay debts. New folks moved in normal as could be. But I'll be honest, victory felt strange. My fence stood tall, a scar and a trophy. I'd wanted a sanctuary, and I'd built a fortress. The real battle, though, was learning to let my guard down again. One evening, an older neighbor, Mr. Henderson, wandered over. He apologized for the neighborhood's silence, said they all saw what Brenda was, but nobody wanted to rock the boat. "We let you pay the price for our comfort," he said. That stung, but it meant something, acknowledging the silent complicity that lets people like Brenda thrive. Time passed. I took down that snarky sign and put up a plaque, just my house number and the word sanctuary. I even threw a little barbecue, invited everyone who'd stood by me, Ms. Davenport, Alex, Gus, and his crew, Mr. Henderson. For the first time, my backyard felt like mine again. Laughter, the smell of grilling food, stories about sports and lumber prices instead of legal briefs. My gate, once a barrier, stood open, welcoming, not defensive. So yeah, you wanted to know what happened? That's what happened. Brenda and Kevin tried to use hate and greed to run me out. They underestimated me, and more importantly, they underestimated the power of the truth. I built a fence, and in the end, it held. But it's what I built inside that matters. My home, my sanctuary, my story, written not in anger, but in resilience. So tell me, where do you draw your line? What would you do if someone tried to push you out of your own life? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about justice, about community, about where we go from here.